It's Laura Eubanks of Design for Serenity with your succulent tip of the day, and I am reporting from my back garden with Bentley, the succulent dog. We are day 5 of quarantine here in California, and like the rest of you, I'm looking for stuff to do. So thanks so many of you for joining in on the live stream yesterday on YouTube. That was the bomb. Overwhelming. We're going to work on fine-tuning a bit, so look forward to more of those in the future. But today, yikes. A lot of you have been asking questions about watering, soil, substrate, medium, plants, compatibility, yada, yada, yada. And here's an example of the resilience of these plants. This is a little tackle box that a friend gave me a number of years ago, and I planted cuttings in it, stuffed the box with moss. I didn't want to put dirt in it. I don't even know if this drains or not. It sits on a little table here under a pergola. It does get wet when it rains. It does get ample sun, but it's run amok, hasn't it? It's just a hot mess, but there's some really, really beautiful plants in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to cut off all my beauties first. Look at this rubrotinctum. I mean, the color is just spectacular on these plants. You know, so many times with succulents, just like with all other plants, it's right plant in the right spot. And in this little microclimate, under this semi-shady pergola, really seems to be ground zero for these plants. I mean, even, look at these, I don't know, I guess they're kiwi. They almost look like Haworthia because they're kind of rough, but I'm pretty sure they're kiwi. Even they are just stressed to perfection. Oh, this is so satisfying. And I have so many plants. My goodness. For those of you that are new to the channel, don't panic. These plants are fine. I am not hurting them one little bit. This is how you prune and maintain succulents. And as you well know, when you get things planted out, they grow. They don't, it's like a haircut. It doesn't stay the same. So you have to know how to manage your succulents. You can set leaves aside for propagation, for leaf propagation when you do this if you'd like. There's going to be absolutely zero waste when I'm finished with this. Now, one thing to talk about, though, is this little stacking crassula. See how it bloomed out and basically there's no pretty top? Well, I could trim off the dead wood, but it just looks scrubby to me. I'm not happy with that. So I'm not going to save this plant. I'm going to get rid of that because that one does not make me smile. Okay, more rubrotinctum. These little sedums are gold, aren't they? Oh, I've even got an echeveria in here. Now's a good time deadheading this. I honestly think this is a little Sahara. I'm going to take off all of the dead underleaves. This is normal deciduation, not a problem. When you clean up and you pull all the dead leaves off of the bottom of your plants, now's a good time to look for rot, bugs, insects, so on. I don't see any evidence of any kind of damage there. What a hot mess this is. OMG. And testimony to the resilience of these amazing plants that we call succulents. They are stunning. And it turns out that I'm crazy. Newsflash, right? I thought that I had planted these in moss, but it looks like soil in here. It's actually kind of hard to tell because it's so thatchy with roots, but I'm pretty sure this was a soil base. I'm going to be replanting these in a bed of moss, though. But look at this. just yuck. So gross. And I also thought, obviously I was wrong, that I had drilled some holes in this. Clearly I didn't. So what does this tell me? What does this teach me? What I already know. You know, like I said, succulents are extraordinary and resilient and can survive in the most unpleasant of circumstances, like literally sitting in water. Why didn't these go south, go sideways? Why didn't they rot? Why are they so plump and healthy? Why is there no disease or insects? I don't know. I do know that I am thankful and I'm grateful that these plants have done so well here. So sometimes you don't necessarily need to overthink it. You know, you don't need to analyze everything. Sometimes it's fun to just enjoy what nature provides. So that's what I'm gonna do. Now, I found this bag of moss in the garage. I got it at Home Depot. But you can use any kind of moss, green moss, sphagnum moss. You can use Spanish moss. You can use soil of any kind. You can use pretty much anything that you can creatively come up with. Moss is nice. It's got some micronutrients in it. It's extremely porous. These plants are going to be in for such a surprise. Where they have been living in a bog, they are now going to be living in a very dry and arid environment, which will suit them better due to their habits and preferences. So you work, you know, you press your moss down pretty tight. Can you wet it? I wouldn't recommend it because all of these plants are going back in here as cuttings. So there's no roots, which means they're not going to take up any moisture or water until they have calloused off and reestablished a root system, which will take a few weeks. So just keep this arrangement in an area where it's not going to get blasted with hot sun and give it a minute to reestablish. You don't have to do a darn thing except enjoy it. So here I am with my packed in dry sphagnum moss. I have a little bit of lift or height here in the center because just like with my in-ground installations, I like there to be a little ebb and flow. I don't want it to be too flat. Then the question is, where do I start? You know, oh, I don't remember where everything was in here. Who cares? It doesn't matter. Have fun. Like I've said before, you can always move things around, but just be creative and go with the flow. Should I take glue and put it on this wound? I could if I wanted to. Some schools of thought say that if you glue the callus, this also acts as a protectant to keep disease from, you know, affecting the plant. That also works to harden off the wound. So that's, you know, that's valid. A little too lazy for me to do that. So I'm going to start with my big pieces, and I'm just going to set them down on the moss. And there goes Bentley, the succulent dog, keeping us safe because that is his job. All right, I like to work with my bigger pieces first. Also like to take into consideration how these plants are going to grow out. You all know that this Aeonium kiwi can get quite big, so it's a little more aggressive. Thus, I'm going to plant it in the back of the arrangement. Well, we're going to have a discussion about that later, aren't we? Bentley's breaching protocol and peeing in an area where he is not supposed to go. Okay, this fuzzy echeveria is super cute, so I'm going to plant that more to the front. And then all of these little sedums are going to go right in the very front, in the rubrotinctum, because they're small and they're diminutive. And if I plant them in the back, you won't be able to see them, huh? So we're going to do some bigger things in the back. See what I'm doing there? See what I did there? Oh, here's another Aeonium kiwi. Now this fuzzy echeveria is blooming. See how pretty? And there are no insects on that bloom. So I'm just going to let that ride. And I'm going to set it right on top of the little Aeonium kiwi. It's really not even going to touch the substrate. And you know what? It doesn't matter. The roots will figure it out. And then the beautiful thing about all of these little guys too is that I can use them to kind of, you know, fill in my gaps. Oh, how fun is this? You cannot tell me that you don't have an arrangement somewhere around your yard that couldn't use a little makeover today. And I want to see it. So send me a picture at Laura Loves Succulents on Instagram. A lot of you have been doing that, and it has made my day. I love to see your work. I love to see what you're working on and what you're doing. You guys are artists. Okay, I need something tall still back here. And remember, if you can see dirt or moss, you're not done. Don't want to see it. Cover every hole, every gap with plants. These are going to shrink down a little bit before they reestablish a root system and get back to work growing. So I want to make sure that they're crammed in good and tight. Gosh, these are beautiful little plants. Holy moly. Okay. Also, a little trick of the trade. If you've got kind of a tight spot, you can always limb up the plant. Set these aside for propagation. Limb it up as far as you want so that you can then stick the stem down in that tight spot. Okay, I'm looking at this from behind, but I'm feeling good about it. I think this is looking pretty finished. And look at all of these leftover plants. So here's my idea. With all of these tiny little ones, I can do some jewelry. Like, see, here's our little spoon that we did the other day. I remember I glued the little cuttings onto the spoon. It is looking lively. I need to get this moved out of the sun since today seems to be warm. But all of these little guys would be adorable as a little miniature arrangement, wouldn't they? And little rubbertinctum leaves work really well too in arrangements. And you can even cut and use blooms and flowers in your arrangements if you want. There is no end to what you can do with these plants. So now I'm going to have the fun of finding homes for these leftovers that are so stunning. I'll probably work them into my gutters. This is going to go back on its spot on the table. See, it's kind of shady. Pretty fabulous. Oh yeah, that looks great. And I'm just going to leave it there. I'm not going to water it or mess with it. I am just going to enjoy it for the next few weeks. And then if it starts to look a little shrivelly or if the weather heats up, I might sprinkle it with a little water at this time. This has been Laura Eubanks of Design for Serenity reporting from her backyard with Bentley the succulent dog and your succulent tip of the day.